like to welcome everybody. Thanks for coming. I'd also like to welcome Francis Burkett, who's joined us as a member of the City Board. He's our Cambridge's representative, taking over from Councillor Ray Mann. So welcome, Francis. We are for it. We've also got our university and business representatives, I think, coming through the door. So, okay, so the first item on the agenda is election of Vice Chairman. So can I call for nominations, please?
No.
Councillor Bates.
No proposed next Councillor Francis Burkett from Southampton District Council for that position.
Okay, well, thank you. You've been instantly elevated, so congratulations, Councillor Burkett. I'm not aware of any apologies for absence, as all of the members are here present, other than apologies from Councillor Steve Count, who Councillor Bates is the alternate for. Can I then take the minutes of the last meeting? Any issues on the minutes in front of us? Okay. Thank you. So we can take, if I can confirm them therefore as a correct record. And any declarations of interest from people present? Can I just say that if we get to items on the agenda where you've got an interest to declare?
Well, I may have an interest in item 10, as a part of the university of London.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that, Professor Slater. So we then move on to questions from the public. We've got 14 questions, so we don't have a very clear guidance in terms of how we operate, but given that we've got 14 questions, what I've asked is to ask the questioners if they could focus on their point within a minute. I hope that you recognise that the main issue is getting a clear answer to the questions that are being asked, and that we obviously on a couple of them there are some technical issues as well, so there may be on a couple that we commit to getting answers to the questioners within a period of time, and then obviously record the answers as part of the notes of the meeting when they're circulated, so that those answers are also available to all. So first of all, in terms of the 14 questions, the first question is from Nicola Harrison.
Thanks, Chair. It's good that you have agreed to produce an environmental design guide, and I'm hoping that this is going to guarantee that in future city deal infrastructure schemes will give proper consideration to the local environment and community life. You know how important that is to local residents. You will, of course, be wanting the guide to be as good as it can be, and you must surely be wanting to rebuild public faith and trust in the city deal. So the question is, will you carry out a public consultation to allow people to comment on the draft guide and contribute ideas and examples of best practice?
Thank you, Nicola. I think Councillor Bates is going to contribute partly on this.
It's really a question, actually, Nicola. Thank you for coming. Thank you for the question. Do you recognise the fact that there is national guidelines and local guidelines in this area, and isn't that a good way of actually building on exactly those to produce a design guide for the future? Do you agree with me?
Well,
I don't get a chance, but since I've been asked, I must contest it. I mean, there may be very good national and local guidance on certain aspects, but what the public wants to see is a comprehensive, coherent, local guide to guide these schemes that you will be bringing forward, and therefore, the public need and deserve to have a chance to have an input on that.
well, I think what we propose is that we will be bringing the design guide, which will be based around set principles, but which will go further, which will have the context of Cambridge, but cannot be a uniform guide, because even within Cambridge we've got well, we set principles precisely because we've got different contexts in terms of landscape and different issues. And the opportunity for input will largely be that of the Assembly, but it will be
Second question is around the junctions between bits of schemes. The Chisholm Trail, for example, will have high quality crossings over most major roads, but there are other proposed schemes like cross-city deal schemes that the junctions are just being completely and utterly ignored. And we believe that those are the places where most of the accidents occur, most of the injuries occur to people on bicycles, and they must be fixed. Our proposal is slightly an alternative approach in that the current traffic volumes and movements for cars and bicycles and people walking at junctions within Cambridge be published in the public domain so that we can propose alternative junction designs to those that the consultants are coming forward with that can provide additional pedestrian and cycle safety whilst accommodating the existing congestion levels in the city.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hughes, can you respond on that, particularly on sharing of data?
Thank you, Chairman. Picking up the point on data sharing started, when we have data, we're very happy to share that, and we often do. So there's no problem with that. I think probably the caveat is that not all of these sections, you talk about pedestrian cyclists, etc., we don't necessarily have all of that data. But we can certainly make available what is available, and people they want for that. I think just briefly on the cross-city cycling, we talked about some of the junctions being I think just the key point is that what we have to do is always balance between different users. And so, as we discussed on a number of occasions before, what we produce doesn't always satisfy everyone in the user group, and sometimes doesn't always satisfy some. We try to do our best. We do have to look at balance with the resources available for these different groups. So, unfortunately, that doesn't always give a particular user group everything right to enjoy their classes as right as we can.
And in terms of the data, if you ask contact Graham, then you can fix a meeting and give you what data there is. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And if possible, could you answer the other questions in the written form in minutes?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's fine. Okay. We will. Thank you. And question 3 is from Paul Gunnar and Nick Burfield from the Suffolk Chamber of Commerce, who we met on this issue on Tuesday.
Indeed. The attached letter to the pages gives the context, so I won't go through it allocated. Can I just say thank you very much to the partners who had us already and got on a number, I think, towards getting a positive outcome here. We're very grateful for that. So the question is still how it was spiky, it probably wouldn't be if it was written now. But this is how it's written. In view of the concerns of the Suffolk Chamber of Commerce and our West Suffolk public partners, the WSP Parsons Group of Concepts report appears to have totally discounted any growth planned in the area in 2031, and have predicted even current A1307 use and no growth in future traffic flows in the A1307, particularly HGVs from major industrial estate, and therefore vastly reduced the BCR of dual the A1307, Cambridge, due to poor and incorrect data put into the model. What will the GCCD board and public partners do to correctly report evidence to ensure correct conclusions and help mitigate the negative impact the report currently has on the A-level chamber-led national campaign to fully deal with the A1307?
Okay. Well, as we discussed when we met, the focus of the city deal is on schemes that score against what our remit is, which is essentially the A1307 this side of the A11 for Wembley. So we will proceed subject to the board's decision with a consultation on that, which again you can contribute to, but which is effectively going to be informed by some of the issues that you raised, and which we'll address before we go out to consultation. So in terms of the technical detail, we'll address the technical detail. And then I think Councillor Bates is going to come in on the broader point. Or Mr. Hughes first.
Thank you, Chairman. I think just to reflect on that, as Mr. Thomas says, at the meeting on Tuesday, I think some recent discussions took place. I think just to be clear, I think that the model did deal with growth, it just dealt with it in a particular way. And what we discuss is where the specific elements of growth can be put into the model, but as I say, not really the effect of growth, it's just the way the model is designed. So, very happy to sort of discuss on Tuesday the meeting in Liverpool to look at those issues. We're already, we remember seeking out practicalities of how we would do that, track surveys, etc. Would be necessary. I think just the only final point I make, I mean, that work needs to go ahead and it will produce inevitably a VCR. So VCR range of report, I think it was about 3.6. Just to be clear, a hurdle basically like VCR is probably about 2. So it's quite a long way to go in terms of changing the number. But I think we will all reflect the officers at Cambridge and Men's is very clear, as it's suffered for a long time, 30% needs addressing. The challenge will always be getting money to actually address it. It clearly is a problem that it does need addressing.
Sorry, it's not an open discussion, I'm afraid.
Oh,
so that's a fair point.
not good. So please, would the members, as people speaking, A, use their microphone and bring it close to them, B, speak clearly, because none of us can hear what you're saying, and we'd really like to. Thank you.
Sorry about that, and it's a very valid point. Thank you for that. So that is guidance to us all, please.
Well, hopefully you can hear me now, okay? So thank you for the meeting we had this week. I think what I would describe is that we've got a positive response also from colleagues in Suffolk to work jointly together with business on this particular issue of the payment of Cambridge, but particularly to the forward ones. So thank you. We will continue to work with you and our colleagues on that particular issue.
Chair, can I just reiterate that point about acoustics? Gentlemen, please speak into the microphones because my camcorder is only picking up 1 or 2 bars, and the amount of extra editing that I have to do with audio because you're not speaking into the microphones is huge, and that doesn't help members of the audience.
Okay, right. Well, we'll speak up. And I'd just like to go in. As a final comment, the assessment of the report on the 1307 is against the City Deal's objectives, and clearly whatever we say about rail, busway or road has been purely said in terms of the City Deal, and clearly there is a discussion still to continue. Thank you, Mr. Burfield.
And thank you for your support in that.
Right. And the next question is from Claire Tripp. Thank you, Claire.
Thank you, Chairman. May I request that your 2 hands joins this part of the questioning as well, because we're both talking about the same
Yeah.
issue. I'm going to, if I may, I'll ask hands to speak first.
Yeah, by all means.
Thank you very much.
I have 2 questions.
Thank you very
I
much.
need to speak towards the pointy thing.
I'm trying to be clear and audible. We, and this is the co-located organisation on the Cambridge Biomedical Campus, would like to lend our strong support for the proposal on the Slip Road on the M11 at junction 11. As it will assist us, we encourage staff, visitors, patients to use public transport when visiting the campus. As you know, there's already a huge problem, especially at peak time, around this part of the M11 and junction, no matter how you approach it. And given that we will have Popworth and AZ fully functioning in a couple of years from now, these things can only get worse. And I want to also highlight that the extension of the campus is not finished by then, because we're going currently through phase 2 and we'll actually attract more organizations to the campus. And we think that the Slip Road option would actually go quite a way to alleviate at least the problem. And we would also see this as one of the, probably the only City Deal project addressing this problem in a timely fashion. Because we would otherwise be running out of time to find a solution that at least ease the problem at that part of the M11. We are, of course, aware that there are apprehensions and simply about the viability of the project, but we believe amongst ourselves that this actually is a viable option and we would like to see it go ahead. We are prepared, as a matter of fact, to actually run a project that we will support to show that it is viable, and we therefore ask for the proposal to be put forward and actually put into place. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I really do endorse that. Mine's not so much a question, it's a position statement regarding Papworth Hospital. You know, Papworth is a founder member of the Cambridge University Health Partners and working with other organisations on the Cambridge Biomedical Campus. It's also to really put a line onto the fact that the majority of Papworth Hospital staff do live to the northwest and southwest of the Cambridge Biomedical Campus. Indeed, about 870 staff live to the northwest, and to be explicit, 525 live to the southwest. Staff are very clear in that they believe their journey time, understandably, will take longer to get onto the campus, but they're also very willing to look at innovative ways in which they can improve their journey time. And the Madingley Road Park and Ride with the slip road would be part of that, where it to be put in place. My other comment would be around where the hospital will be in terms of its patient flow in April 2018. It will be servicing 70,000 outpatients and 25,000 inpatients, which is an awful lot of traffic to put into the system. Granted, they won't all be coming from the northwest, they'll be coming from a number of areas. But equally, creating good access is important. Papworth endorses the comment made by my colleague around being prepared to initiate and support with other organisations on the campus bus service for staff and wide stakeholders to demonstrate the viability of the scheme. Thank you.
Thank you. So we've got this as item 13. So we will come on to it later. Mr. Hughes, do you want to give an initial response, please?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, as the Chairman says, this is an item on the board's agenda today. The recommendation to the board is to move ahead with the scheme, although the board needs to take a decision on that. I think, just to be clear though, this has had quite a long history through the Assembly and the board in terms of developing this proposal, and it's not going to be an easy proposal if the board decides to move ahead with it to deliver it. There are some significant issues with Highways England that we need to overcome. At the moment, there is no indication that the buses using the route, and certainly there is merit, I think, in seeing it as part of the broad West Orbital proposal, which again the board needs to decide on. So really, I mean, there is, there could be some benefits, but I think actually the delivery could be quite significant as well. Just one final point I'll make, Mr. Harden's note, there was a reference to both use by cars and public transport. Just to be clear, for all members, it's always been assumed this will be a public transport only route. And I think if we were to put this to Highways England on the basis of being anything other than just public transport and therefore only occasional use, I think we'll get a very different response. So discussion we've had so far only been in relation to buses, which is likely to be more acceptable.
Can I just thank you both for the data, and also clearly one of the issues is going to be what buses would use this slipway and slip road. So clearly some of the further feasibility work, should the board support it, is going to be on that. But thank you for your input, obviously, particularly after there was a debate that Councillor Biddle reported on the Assembly. We obviously need to take a view, and we'll take a view and then be informed by what you've said.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. And question 6 is from Barbara Taylor.
I'm a resident of Norton Road, and my question actually can apply to all arterial roads. Yeah, I'm a resident of Milton Road, and my question can apply to all arterial roads. The recent consultation regarding proposals for Milton Road for addressing congestion in Cambridge was notable for the absence of any proposals to reduce the impact of the city centre as the addressed this crucial contributory element to congestion in Cambridge?
Thanks for your question, Barbara. I mean, our position is, and I think I can speak for the board, that we believe in both. And the proposal is to bring forward in the summer a report on the city centre access strategy. And then as part of that, to bring together some of the issues that came out of the call for evidence. But I can ask other board members, but from my position, we need both. And it's right that we look at the two as a combined impact together. So the proposal is to bring a report at the earliest on Milton and Histon Road in the summer, and to have a set of proposals about reducing the overall future number of cars coming into the city at the same time. Councillor Burkett wants to.
I support that. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, Barbara. And then if we can move on to question 7, and that is from Michael Bond.
Thank you, Chairman.
You'll need to speak right up against it, Michael.
Yes. My questions, although it look like 2, are actually 1, related to the proposals for orbital roads around Cambridge. This is the only bit of the recent consultations that appears to be anything like strategic thinking. Because one of the big problems is pumping everything through the middle of the city, which is already full. You just can't keep doing it. You will not discourage commuters unless you take some very active measures to do it. And the Western Order proposal, apart from the fact that at the moment it suggests that it should be buses only, does make a sensible approach to try and distribute people around the city. But unfortunately, at the launch meeting a week ago, although they were asked, how does it link up with places commuters actually want to get to, was really not answered at that stage. In terms of the East Coast Orbital, in terms of the
bring you to a question. Could I bring you to a question?
Yes, sir. Yes. So the question really is, with this and the Eastern Orbital, that there really should be discussion with residents of Cambridge who have a big interest in actually the efficient movement of people who just come into work and want to go away again, without having their environment, their facilities, and their ability to move about their city completely screwed up.
Thank you, Mr. Bond. Mr. Hughes, have you got anything to add on the Western Orbital in relation to other plans?
Well, I think in terms of what I understood this question from Mr. Bond around an eastern relief road around the A14, that's what I understood you were to ask about. Well, that's a very, very different issue, and it does have a history. I understand that the Resident Association put that forward to the Highways Agency as they were at the time when they were looking at the A14 routes. So, insofar as that relates to the Western Orbital, I don't think there really is a relationship. The Western Orbital is principally about getting people from the west and to the west of the city, around the city effectively, and down to Barnet campuses. So that's distributing traffic, bus users without them, as you say, leaving down to Cambridge City Centre, which clearly an in and out movement does have greater impacts on the city centre than would an orbital route. So that's really the purpose of the Western Orbital. So it's not seeking to address the wider issues towards the east of the city that you refer to in the question. And I think just more generally on the point you make about consulting, I think there's a huge amount of consultation. There are some reports about on the agenda today for the board to consider, and there will be very, very significant ongoing consultations on all of the schemes that the city of the board is seeking to move forward. So I think we're always happy to talk about if there are better ways of doing that, but I do think there is a very, very significant amount of local and wider consultation currently taking place on all the schemes.
I mean, I think the genesis of the Western Orbital report isn't because we've got the funds to look hard at it immediately. It was
was just to start to prompt the principle that within the strategy there is a significant plan to invest in orbital capacity and thereby not take bus traffic as well as other movements all the way in. So some of that was effectively an advanced consultation. So when we come on to the budget later on, we're effectively listing schemes Mr. Bond was proposing to consider as part of the first 5 years, and then we'll go on to this. But I think there will be further consultation on this and on the measures that are citywide. Thanks. Question 8 is from Richard Taylor, and that relates to the delegations and related issues. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Richard Taylor. I'm a resident of Cambridge. Two disclosures. I own a house on Milton Road, and I used to work with Nigel Slater, one of the board members. Now, three of you, the three council members of the board here, can potentially exercise all the powers of local councils in this area. And what I've come today to do is to urge you to be very clear about which of those powers you are intending to exercise in relation to each scheme. I think that's really important for transparent decision making and so that people know who to lobby. As a specific example, on Milton Road, I don't know at the moment who will be taking decisions relating to tree felling and tree works. I don't know if that's going to go through the existing city and county council process or if that's a power you are going to take here and the three councils here will take decisions on the Milton Road trees.
You raise very important questions, and we need to be precise in responding to them. I think Tanya's going to respond, but I think what we propose to do is to put in writing what the protocol is, both in terms of what this City Deal Board will take decisions on and what we will leave to other authorities, and be clear as to what is which is which. Do you want to add something? Or Greg?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I mean, just specifically, so as the Chairman said, we can summarise all that. I think that's probably the easiest way to make available and put it on the website, so then there is some clarity. If I just touch on Mr. Taylor's point specifically about trees, that is actually a really, really complicated issue. We only have 24 hours notice of the question, so we have been trying to, if you like, make absolutely clear, because there is a relationship between the privacy of different, if you like, parts of the legislation, in terms of Highways Act and Planning Act. So, with the 24 hours we've had, I mean, it's not been possible to put together an absolutely clear answer on the tree issue, but we will do that. And similarly, as Mr. Chairman said, with the powers that have been delegated to this board, we will clarify that position as soon as we can.
So we register, it's a really important question, and we do need to have absolute clarity. We haven't taken on powers from the county council to abuse them. We've taken them on to be clear about this an integrated decision process. Thank you. I understand Roger knows that very well. Does someone going to ask a question? Or no? We've already arranged with Cambridge to get both Stacey Weiser and Robin to have a meeting, so we expect to address the questions in the meeting. Okay. Question 10 is from Lynn Hyatt. Yeah?
My question is about the discussion on the 1st of March at the Highways and Community Infrastructure Committee to delegate more powers to the City Deal Board. An amendment came along with that decision, which, as I understand it, has the effect that more safeguards for decision-making will now be required by the Executive Board. Can you tell us when the details of those safeguards will be published to the public and to the Highways Committee, which requested a report from the Board on the safeguards? And will they cover all of the concerns about these matters raised in the Smarter Cambridge Transport document to the Highways Committee, which was circulated to this board on Monday? Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. I think similar and following up from the question from Mr. Taylor, we will want to put it clear in writing as to who takes which decisions. I could hazard a proposal that we would get back initially in about a fortnight, but obviously there may be some details. So we will put this down in writing in a very clear and transparent way.
Bearing in mind the previous question and this one, those do need to be rather one statement that everybody's clear, because they do slightly overlap.
So there will be one statement, and I think it's right that there are the kind of safeguards that were moved as an amendment at the County Council Committee, so that obviously some of those words were very, as you were rightly pointing to, were very general, so we'll be specific. We move on to question 11 from Councillor Tony Borgie.
Thank you very much. There are 2 pages, the last 2 pages of this document, which set out some background details. And I should say that there should be a small preamble to the question, which is something along the lines of, given that it appears from what you've already said earlier in this meeting, that there will be no action taken proposed for the Linton bottlenecks. Given the extensive parking of a number of biomedical and biotechnology employment sites at Cambridge, and given the presence of London-used park and ride site at Avon Road, and then the question follows. What the question, perhaps in a not very elegant way, tries to get at is a more strategic point, and that is really, do you feel that what you have before you today represents a missed opportunity to consider the interrelated major biomedical and biotechnology employment sites at Addenbrooke's, the Avon campus, Granter Park TWI, the Genome campus and the Great Chesterfield sites, and the congestion hotspots of Linton and the A505 Sawston roundabout in a holistic and integrated way?
Thank you for that question. Graham Hughes, you want to start? And we'll get out of that.
Mr. Chairman, I think probably the simplest answer to that, Councillor Orgy, is that we're only in this piece of work at the very, very early stages, and so we've identified as officers some potential proposals. The board will be discussing those proposals. We're suggesting that if they're accepted, they go to consultation. So I don't think we can say absolutely at this moment in time what the impact of any of those will be. I think we feel that it's a good balance in terms of the objectives of the city deal, but ultimately the board and through the consultation that needs to be determined.
When we had the original list, Councillor Orgy, of the priorities that the officers had recommended for the first 5 years, this area wasn't in them. And the board, assisted by the Assembly, took the view that there needed to be a plan. So it is a conceptual proposal. But I think you do make a really important point, because the nature of the local plan and the jobs creation that's occurring at those locations means that there is significant numbers, and therefore there's a significant public transport demand, along with other linkages, including potentially cycling as well. So it's assisted by information that you provided and others, including the Chamber of Commerce. We will go out to consultation and we will welcome proposals, because clearly it isn't just about Cambridge and that corridor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Angela Chadwick-Healy.
I'm a resident of Madingley Road, and today I'm only going to ask one question, because we have a time restriction on us, and are only allowed to ask one question. I would like to ask for clarification of the expenditure table at Appendix A to Budget, which is item 8 of the agenda. What is the Madingley Road Russ Priority project listed here? I thought all the options were still on the table for Russ Lane to be put on the northern, central and southern route. Or is there another route altogether? Excuse me. Sorry, I need to go.
Don't worry. Take your time. As much time as you need, including water.
Thank you. Is there some other set of works planned for Madingley Road that are not those set out in the Campbell to Cambridge consultation? If not, then why is the expenditure already categorised this way? We would like greater clarity on this. It is necessary for have open minds. I'm asking this partly of you because I may have missed something. The table says that the Madingley Road expenditure is combined with the A428 project. But what does that mean in terms of the table?
Thank you. So we're, for those who want to reference the table, it's on page 35 of the agenda. Mr. Hughes, or Tony's going to answer this one. And in terms of your other questions, Angela, we'll get a written answer back to you. Okay?
Thank you.
Straightforward answer. They are, in mathematical language, Madingley Road bus priority plus A428 to M11 segregated bus routes / A428 corridor equals Camden to Cambridge or A428. These are historic project level labels from January 2015. They've all been combined into one project. So future finance reports will have them as just one line item, and yes, all options still on the table as item 10 on the agenda.
So in terms of the overall quantum of numbers that are on page 35, these are indicative numbers, Angela, at the moment. So part of the objective of routine decisions on schemes as we come back and look at the consultation in the summer is to come forward with clearer amounts, including because the board and the city deal only have 100 million to spend within the first 5 years anyway. So the plus some funds, but not a significant addition. So the actual the numbers don't actually have any firm validity, if that's helpful, because they're only indicative at this stage, and it will be only linked to what scheme is actually adopted on whatever part of the city deal. So the numbers have got no physical shape behind them at the moment. Other than an allocation which will be reviewed in the autumn. Thanks. Question 13 from Wendy Bye.
Good morning, everybody. I've just done a little bit of tweaking of mine to fit into time constraints. The local liaison forum is a bit of a mystery to city residents. And they're asking why the city deal is putting in another layer of bureaucracy that seems to distance their voices from the real decision makers. Could you give residents the reassurance that even when the local liaison forum is set up, and stakeholders who will be on it, defined by our city councillors, that residents will still have access to existing forums and will be able to approach this board and the Assembly directly with their questions? Thank you.
Well, in terms of the last point, I can give you that full assurance that there's no intention of these liaison forums to actually use them in that way. But I think Tony Sheridan has responded initially. Do you want to add anything? Or just contribute what the purpose in the way that the county council has used local liaison forums has been? Clearly there has to be, these are tended to have been set up outside of the city, therefore they're taking this form of encouraging people from parishes and other organisations. We would clearly want to have a different route to ensure that we get good representation if we're involving people within the city. Mr. Hughes?
Thank you, Chair. I think the only thing I'd add to that is that we have, as a county council, we've used local liaison forums in a number of schemes. As the Chairman said, generally, in fact, probably exclusively outside of Cambridge City, so these news of the city. The point of them is just to act as a forum for issues to be raised as they come up. So for local councils and other stakeholders that are there as well, to have an interactive dialogue with officers. It's not a decision-making group, but it's actually a way of, in much sort of more real time, people being able to understand what's coming up, what's being planned, how things are developing. And from our experience, we started using on the Guide Busway project, and from our experience, they've been tremendously helpful in often, to be honest, heading off what could become a big issue when people aren't really sort of able to air their thoughts and get the information streamlined way of being able to have this discussion about what's coming up, and we found them tremendously helpful, and I think generally they've been by residents and local members have been done very helpful as well. And in fact, actually, Jim, I can just add, we effectively have used this with relation to the Abbey Chesterton Bridge and the Cambridge Station for led by Councillor Ian Manning from the County Council, and I think in that area, Lee and local residents have found it particularly helpful as I say, a sort of quick way of getting information and sharing thoughts.
Yeah, because I did tweet my question. Because my original question, I also said that chairs of the Residents' Forum weren't invited the first forum on Monday. In fact, it's the same night as the Residents' Forum, the City Council's Residents' Forum. So they can't go.
So,
hence concerns.
So we'll have a look at avoiding clashes, and
Yes.
I think certainly there's a different pattern needs to be established for the city area, because it doesn't have the same local structures that you have that exist out in areas of South Cambridgeshire. Councillor Bates and Councillor Murphy both wanted to make a comment.
Just trying to read that the highways England are using the same local forums on the A14, so it's not confined to the county council work.
No.
Other organisations do very similar, and those meetings are happy organised and they are taking place. So other organisations talk very much about those local concerns, but perhaps if we've got where perhaps very specific, technical sometimes can be answered at those local forums. Not necessarily come to something like a board or an assembly, we can actually be dealt with in a public forum. So there are more other organisations.
Transparency about stakeholders is the question also.
Well, I think given that you also speak on behalf of the Residents' Association of the City, I think we'll get you a reply about that.
Okay, thanks very much.
Do you want to say something? Yeah.
Well, I think it might just be helpful if Mr. Hughes can clarify. If I'm right, it's not that there's going to be one liaison forum that does everything. It's going to be a number of liaison forums for each project. Is that right?
Generally, yes, that's correct.
So they are local. Okay. But we'll clarify. Finally, question 14 is from Councillor Stephen Van. Welcome.
Thank you for fitting me in. Right. The A10 Cambridge to Royston cycle scheme was prioritised in City Deal Tranche 1 consideration. Cambridge Biomedical Campus Partners, in a letter to you a year ago, said that this is a scheme they need to help get people from the A10 South Corridor to work without a car. They made special note of the Melbourne to Royston segment. To take just one example, AstraZeneca already has 200 employees living in Royston and 600 plus in the rest of the corridor, and more on the way. While not making the cut for early City Deal delivery, much work has been done on all sides to progress the scheme through other means, as you know. What has been built in recent months, connecting Harston to Foxton, has been transformative. Cycle commuters are now getting through Foxton Level Crossing much more quickly than cars, and counters are being installed. AstraZeneca is now working on the nuts and bolts of helping first-time cyclists to make the switch, looking at types of electric pool bikes and so on. But the Melbourne to Royston segment, with the greatest population concentration, is unfunded. In order to achieve a scheme that is so deliverable and can so easily contribute to the critical modal shift of travel to Cambridge Biomedical Campus, my request to the City Deal Board is to bring the unfunded segment of the overall scheme into tranche 1. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Van. As you recall, we had a meeting with yourself and also with Councillor Burkett on this issue. So I don't know if you want to add anything, Councillor Burkett.
I think it would be of great interest to residents of South Cambridgeshire District, and I very much welcome an officer's report in June on that.
Mr. Luke?
Yes, Chairman, we can certainly do that.
So, I think our approach is complicated on some schemes because there's the opportunity to win funding which isn't from City Deal, but I think our commitment is to fund those parts of the gap, including the area that we discussed adjacent to Melbourne, if we can afford it, which I think we can, as part of helping the incremental progress that has been really impressive that you've made. Thank you. So thank you to all for all those questions. I've noted several written responses, one to the cycling campaign, one to Mr Taylor, and also to the Federation of Cambridge Residents Associations. So we'll have an response to Richard Taylor will also address the point from Lynn Hyatt in terms of the safeguards in terms of the delegated decisions on the County Council. So thank you for those questions, and if there are aspects of the issues that you haven't had an answer to, then you can contact me or Tanya. And we have, as we've had meetings with different groups, we, as members of the board, are happy to meet people as well as answer questions in this forum. So if we can move on, and if I could welcome Councillor Vick at this point, albeit that he's been welcomed for a lot of meetings. If we can move on to the item 6, which is the reports and recommendations from the Joint Assembly, and I know that we've got at least 8 further items on the agenda, so we can obviously pick up the overall report now, Councillor Vick, and then take input at the beginning of each item. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted at the beginning to highlight several of the questions that were brought to the Assembly, and it would be useful, I think, by passing them on if there was a reaction from the board. Dr. Anthony Eva came along and asked us about how we were reconciling different transport proposals against CO2 emission targets for the future. And in part of the answer we got from Bob Menzies, we understood that the Access study report in the summer is intended to refer to carbon impact, and I think it would be useful if the board could confirm their expectation that that's the case, and also if they could say something about actually how that was going to be done, how that would be achieved. And then the 2 other questions I wanted to refer to were from City Councillor Marcus Gehring and Jim Chisholm. I think both of these questions reflected a feeling that whether it's demand management or whether it's technological solutions, that once we knew about those, they could make the choices that are currently being put to people about various engineering schemes very different. And there seems to be still a broad perplexity about the sequencing in which this is happening, because to many people it would seem quite a bit more logical to know about the real choices that are going to exist rather than the ones sort of shorn of the demand management or technological solutions. So your comments on that would be welcome too.
Well, we've got them in front of us. Obviously, we can have a dialogue on such issues. These are questions that we weren't expecting necessarily going to put straight into our face, but we will come back to the Assembly on how we're going to take the city centre access study in the summer, and we'll share with you the proposal for that, if Mr Hughes can do that. Clearly, carbon and specifically, as accented by our coverage this week, the whole issue of emissions in the city are a serious issue, so we would expect that the method of assessment of the different options would include that. So clearly there's a range of options come out of the call for evidence and are in the existing brief for the consultants on the Access study report, which included a matrix, and that would be the best way of effectively evaluating some of the different options. So that's our broad approach there, and I'm sure that the officers have taken note of the issues that were raised by the questioners as part of that project. Do you want to comment? Okay. So if we then move into the items that we've got in front of us, some of the numbering is slightly different from the assembly, but I'm sure we can work that out. So the next item we've got is the report. We've got Chris Manley here. So we've got a financial monitoring report on pages 21 to 24 on the budget as it's being spent. Mr. Manley.
Thank you, Chairman. As you rightly say, the first report is the budget for this current financial year. We committed to bring a report on a quarterly basis. Given the timings of both the Assembly and this board meeting, we have been able to produce the report for the period ending at the end of January, which is approximately 10 months into this current financial year. The programme budget is starting to gain some momentum, and we have spent, we have a variation at the end of January of 10.5% against the profile budget, which is a significant improvement against the previous report at Q2, which showed an underspend at that point of 2.3%. And as I mentioned at that time, obviously being a new programme, there is some momentum that takes time to gather, and it's good to know that we're actually trying to catch up against the profile budget, so that's positive. In terms of the operation budget, likewise, there was, as I think the board is aware, some delays in recruiting to various roles, and therefore there will be a fairly significant underspend in the financial year. At this point, I think we're now, based on the roles that are funded in this year, we're actually getting out full confidence. I think the communications and manager role has actually started. The President's obviously picking up on the mantle around the communications. I mean, there are a number of concerns around sort of the operating budget, Chairman, particularly around housing, where we haven't yet incurred any of the funding, not having funding that was agreed as part of this year's budget. Again, I'm aware that the MD was appointed to the housing role last week, and therefore the recruitment process that then again will gain momentum. I'm happy to take any questions in relation to either programme or operation budgets for the current financial year.
Okay, any questions from Councillor Burgett?
Just found it very clear and very helpful, and thank you much indeed. At the end of the year, will you do a sort of annual wrap-up? Because your quarters are sort of not quite tied in there entirely. 10 months.
Similar to that session, we will do a year-end report, particularly around whether we, as a board, wish to carry forward any of those resources into the next financial year, which was a good decision for. In terms of timing, it's a sort of mixed challenge really, because I'll let the most up-to-date information that we've got available, but given, let's say, the timings of the meetings don't fall naturally into the quarter slots. So I was in a bit of a dilemma, do I bring a Q3 report, which is 6 weeks out of date, or a month 10 report, which doesn't fit that look natural. So I'll take that to Chairman, but I'm happy to.
Yeah, I think what we're getting is to the latest month, which I think is very useful. Councillor Bates.
Okay, I concur with the recommendations, Chairman, just to allow me on page 23 at 6.2, they reference to, I think, that there is a fund. Is that what you just covered? Okay, I'm content with the recommendation.
So we welcome Beth Durham, who's joined us, as our communications lead, and also the appointment of Alan Carter, who's taking over the lead of the Giant Housing Company, which has got a role on our affordable housing. So the recommendation in front of us is to note the position. Is that agreed? Thank you. We'll move on to item 8, and if Mr. Manning you can introduce that, I think Councillor Bibby got a bit more to say on this one. Yep. Mr. Manning.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, clearly the budget for 2016-17 has been considered by the Assembly, and comments and recommendations from the Assembly are included within paragraph 2 of the report. Obviously, Councillor Bibby, I wish to add to what's already in the report. As I mentioned at the Assembly, I think going into the current financial year, there was a degree of nervousness about the comprehensive spending review and whether the new homes bonus, which is the first element of pooled arrangements, financial pooled arrangements between the three authorities, whether that would survive the spending review. And we therefore, as a result, only looked at the short term in terms of that pooling arrangement and the agreed budget against that pooled resource. I'm pleased to say, as I'm sure that everybody is now aware, that the new homes bonus survived initially the spending review in its current format, and the funds that have been allocated to the three authorities, and then the proportion, 50% proportion allocated to the City Deal partnership set out in the report. Within the spending review, however, it was made clear that the new homes bonus would be subject to an ongoing consultation exercise, and there was a high degree of likelihood that it would survive in its existing format. I think it's also fair to say that there will be an element of redirection of new homes bonus into the care budget in 2017-18 and beyond, but this is subject to a consultation exercise. So the report sets out funding arrangements for the current year in terms of that funding arrangement and includes reference and summary of the consultation that has been issued. Obviously, we will bring back future reports on the outcome of that consultation exercise when it is available to you. For that reason, obviously, we've not again looked too far ahead because we don't know what the level of funding is going to be beyond 2016-17. But we have developed an operational budget well in line with the resources that are available. Tanisha, who now been in post for a number of months, has reviewed the level of resources that she believes are necessary to support the successful delivery of the programme, and they are set out in the report. And without wishing to still cast a thunder, there was a degree of challenge from the Assembly and some more information requested as set out in the report regarding a number of those activities which we have agreed to bring back to both the Assembly and the Board during the next cycle. There are also two additional requests for some primary money, and as with other previous recommendations that have come to the board, they are set out in basic high-level principles in the report. But we will bring that, if those principles are agreed, as the Assembly requested, we will bring back more detailed reports around the housing pipeline and logistical pipeline. So that's the programme element, the operation element. There's also a revision to, or an update to the 5-year programme, council programme, which is set out in the report. And we will take on board the comments made during the question time, Chairman, in future presentations around the officer rates issue. So we will revise the project. And as you quite rightly said in your response to that question, the longer-term projects are indicative and we will continue to update the capital programme as we get better information.
Thank you for being precise. Councillor, you've got one that's been, I think, addressed in the extra information in the report, but you had a couple of points there.
Yes, thank you. The first point was about further information in relation to the extra resources going into the operational budget. I think that the general description of what those resources were for represented things that all members of the Assembly wanted to see in relation to outreach work, programme assurance, support for the Board and Assembly, communications particularly. So no problem with where we're going with this, but it was just felt that for the Assembly, and we hope to the Board, to actually approve them, the actual spending on the items, we needed to know actually what those items were. So I welcome what Chris Marion has just said in relation to something happening, something being reported in the next quarter. The other 2 points that I wanted to raise was the fact that it was raised in the Assembly that the forecast, or the part of the report that deals with developer contribution funding, to the programme costs, which currently appear on top of page 28. They don't necessarily reflect the full picture of what we will in the end receive for the projects that we're looking at now. The course of that conversation, Chris Mullion said that he could do some sort of forecast for us, which would help us understand where we might be getting to. Now, I think we understood in that conversation that it's impossible or would be counterproductive to start writing down names of developments and the amounts that they will generate, because they are negotiated in amounts. But we did welcome the idea that we would get a sort of quantum forecast of where we should get to. And I would be interested to know, perhaps in the discussion now, about when we might receive that. I think it would be useful. And the third point, also in the Assembly discussion, was identified that there was some potential, what looked like some potential slippage represented by the financial projections over the 5-year period in relation to particular projects. Discussion that ensued, we understood there was a possible distinction to be made between the schedule of payments that were made for projects and the schedule of implementation of the construction. And it was being contended by officers that the payment schedule typically could run behind construction dates. Given the importance to members of the board that we want to make sure that we're managing any slippage, we welcome the suggestion from Chris Mullion that we could get a reconciliation between the payment schedules and the construction schedules, just so that we could be sure that we were satisfied that slippage had not yet emerged. And again, the question, when could we have that? Because obviously we wouldn't want that to slip either.
Thank you. I'm not opposed to just taking any other points from the board and then getting a wrap up from Mr. Mullion, and then we can make a choice on this. Councillor Burton.
I'll just take us to page 32. And however, Chairman, that what we're being asked to approve is just the left-hand from the 2016-17 budget, and the right-hand three are just estimates. Because the substantive point I'd make is that I would, for future years, remain open-minded on the line skills and the line smarter, greater Cambridge, and if the relevant underlying bodies came forward with good business cases, why, if we put more money, for example, into skills, they could create more apprentices than our current target. I would be very open-minded to that, and I'd like to, put that down as a marker, really. Similarly, on Smarter Greater Cambridge, I think we all believe that there could be some work done there, and if a greater budget in future years would help and improve, I'd be open-minded. So I'm pleased that we're not setting those out in years instead.
Thank you. Councillor Evans.
Just pick up really on the operational budget, Mr. Chairman. The report is very comprehensive, and I draw your attention really to page 48, where there is the outlook by structure, which I'm content with. Okay, so I think actually, when we look at the operational budget, I think we need to actually deliver it, and we need better communication, which is identified as something that will fulfil that goal. So I'm content with what I call the recommendation, which is on page 25 in that respect.
Okay. I mean, I think it's right to, as Councillor Pitt has done, sort of do a walk through what is a really valuable report from Mr. Mullion. So on page 28, it clearly does matter how much development contributions we're able to generate, and that we continue to monitor those there. So it was clearly part of the city deal that we would generate. It's just that some of them will continue to be estimates, and they are subject to negotiation, and we want to get the best deal for the city deal. So that's a sort of a big issue. On page 29, we've got our original expectations of contributions from the three councils using New Homes bonus, but it's probable that is going to be affected by the review that's coming up. We've strategic choices, and it's right that particularly on page 35 we look at that. Tanya Sherwood.
Just in case it's useful to clarify the additional information on the system programme management budget, which it's certainly useful to be able to start spending in order to happen within this meeting to provide that support and to improve communications. To clarify that the money for communications is very much an indicative budget, and we propose to bring back to the Assembly Board a revised communications strategy updating the 2014 communications strategy, which would have more, I suppose, more accurate budget for that.
Okay. So I know comments including from Councillor Burke. Do you want to add any more?
I thoroughly endorse the communication strategy point. I think all we can do on that might do better.
Mr. Valley, do you want to pick up several points, including a couple from Councillor Burke?
Thank you, Jane. I didn't really know all the ways. So the two questions about when from Councillor Beck, section 116 and the reconciliation to the slippage and to the programme and the actual sort of financial payments. The first, the former is the easier, he says, slightly tongue-in-cheek, is the easier of the two. In order that I think we have fairly robust proposals or plans on when the likelihood of section 161 will fall. Just building on what Councillor Dick referred to that are made at the Assembly, one of the key reasons that we don't want to disclose the individual sums, as Councillor Dick pointed out, is that would actually undermine our negotiation position with those developers. So whilst we can do a global profile of the expected level of 106 predicated on the anticipated growth, which I would say would be very easy. We would not like to actually disclose the individual allocations to that to individual developments. So that was fairly straightforward. The slippage one is slightly more challenging. I'll into the point of calling it slippage. The reconciliation between the capital programme and in relation to the programme implementation and physical financial payments requires a merging of financial profiles against the operational project plans. We haven't yet done that piece of work. So I think when I speak to Mr. Chairman, I'll bring the next cycle. I might take 2 cycles to get to the reconciliation process. And just reiterating the question that Councillor Burke made around the fact that 16-17 is the budget that we're seeking approval for, and in future years we will come back to the board and the Assembly for agreement this time every single year, and we'll readdress any priorities that we have during this process. That doesn't stop any variations happening, of course, during the year, should issues and matters require funding. That's what's in the powers approved by the board. So when we agree on the budget, that doesn't necessarily can't amend the budget in the year.
Thank you. In terms of the recommendations which are on page 25, I was proposing, given that we've answered the point that the Assembly made under B, not to forward that in terms of physical wording, but welcome your thoughts on including Councillor Dick wording on item D, because it makes sense that, as Councillor Manning has said, that this can be brought forward in terms of the reconciliation. And then, in addition to the recommendation on item F, and to say words in a way, that in effect that we've got 2 reports that we commit to bringing forward before the end of the year. One is the unallocated monies, but the second is an update report on the table on page 35, because we and the Assembly need to review prioritising in light of the progress and the greater definition of plans that will develop. It won't be the final word, but I just think we propose that as the wording that by Christmas that we bring forward a report on that allocation. So if people are happy with that wording, that we add the update on the overall programme Okay, thank you. So thank you, Mr. Murray. That's a very comprehensive report, and we do need to ensure that we are in a position to win the subsequent 400 million by how well we manage the first. So if we move on to item 9, this is an additional item, and essentially we've got the local plan, the two conjoined local plan reports going to the respective district councils. So we're being asked as a board to basically communicate to the local plans that are going forward our recommendation of endorsing this statement, because essentially what a critical part of the proposals in the local plan is that the necessary infrastructure and transport investment will be made available. Mr. Hughes, do you want to add anything? Or Tanya?
Really just to say that this report has come about as a result of representations made within the recent consultation on the local plans, casting doubt on the local plan strategy and on livability, and so it's really just an invitation to clarify the relationship between the city and the local plans and its role in supporting the strategy.
Councillor Bates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can take the report as laid out. I have also the same recommendation as laid out.
Thank you. Sorry. Councillor Burkett.
I also agree. I think it's a very important document, and I think it's a very well written one. Paragraph 6 onwards sets out really what we're all about, which is supporting economic development and supporting the local plan, and the way everything merges and comes together. So I think it's a very good document, a very good statement. So Jensen, it reaffirms very clearly what we're about.
Councillor Bates.
Mr. Chair, without wishing to have a discord note, why was this not submitted through the Assembly also? Because it does seem to be the sort of document that the Assembly would have both benefited from having the chance to discuss, and also the board may have benefited from hearing their comments.
Quick explanation of that, which is that the comments only came to light from the analysis of consultation responses which took place around the time of the last joint assembly meeting. So at that time we didn't know that there was a need for it, and waiting until the next joint assembly full cycle, then the board would not have a chance to take that position on the local plan in time to influence the hearings and the inspectors' views, and that's explained in an email to John Assembly recently.
It kind of walks into an issue that we have discussed, which is bringing closer together the meetings. We have a particular gap this time, and I think good decision making will benefit from there being an appropriate gap, but not one where there's issues continuing to arise. So I've got in front of us the recommendation on page 49. So is the board happy to endorse that statement? Okay. Thank you. So we move on. And the next item is item 11. 10, sorry. So 10, I can't go past 10. So we've got item 10, which is the consultation report and outcomes on the 848, 830 and 3 consultation, in which, as was reported, I think we had over 2,000 responses, so it was a significant response to the consultation. So, Mr. Hughes, sorry, Mr. Walmsley.
Thank you, Chair. The report that we've sent out here today is comprised really on the high-level consultation, the headline results, and the general perspective of that particular corridor. We've also looked at can you hear me? And we've looked at the implications of the options that we propose within that report, as well as to assess those consultation figures against each of those options. We've also included as part of this report the additional comments that we've received as part of the consultation, referred to them here as hybrids, but in essence they are additional ideas that we are pursuing as well. We've also got consultation results on the park and ride sites and the suggested location that we put forward. This report is looking to take a view on those consultations and to take this process forward so that we can enter now into the development of the scheme, as we hope to be, and that we can start to pursue outline business case and detailed design, a package of understanding around ecology and heritage, and to come back to the board at a later date with a proposal. Just to give you some headline figures on it, but I think it's fairly safe to say that the majority of those that responded, as you rightly say, 2,200 responses is pretty high, given the sort of length of that corridor. And I think it's a reflection actually of the number of exhibitions that we did put out. Some argue that we may have done too many. I think in a way we can never quite get it right, and I think we did in the end get some positive feedback. I mean, clearly there were some issues that we were expecting, and that did attract a petition, which we've processed as well as part of the consultation, 3,600 signatures, so a very significant number of people proposing some of the options. We were also able to glean from the consultation the volume of traffic, the volume of motorist usage of that corridor, to find that in fact 70% of those who use it do actually drive that corridor, which is a significant number. We've also been able to identify that to make that corridor work as a sustainable means of travel, we would need to improve journey time, predictability, faster journey time, and increase service levels. And that seems to be coming out as quite an overarching field as a predicted usage of that corridor. As you can imagine as well, and clearly this is an important part of it, 66% of those that responded were asking for assurance that something would be provided along that corridor at the same time. As I mentioned also, Table 1 sets out the alternatives and the hybrids that we refer to, and we are currently undertaking a review of those studies now. We've done some initial works and they're published on the website for those that are particularly interested, but we will be considering all of those as part of the development of the scheme and the package of measures that we have to take forward. In terms of the schemes themselves, the options, I mean, they're set out in the report. And as you can see, quite strong opposition to the proposals for a north route, sort of an equally strong opposition to those in the south. And I think that's a fairly common theme through the Tranche 1 and Tranche 2 proposals. Nevertheless, where we go from here is to now put together an outline business case, and we need to now consider what that looks like, and we need to now think about the economic value, the value for money, and all the options now that we would consider. So in terms of how that will look, I wouldn't wish to predict what the scheme will look like as we go forward, but certainly it's going to come through some interesting points, and I think what we're looking to do now is to spend a great deal of time and effort in trying to mitigate any potential environmental impact, and we're working very closely with those partnerships within the Local Nature Partnership and to ensure that we do consider all of those important aspects of the scheme as part of the ecology statement. And that will be an important part of the report when we come back to you at a later date. So the recommendation is, as you can see, that we're looking to take this scheme forward. Table 2 sets out the timelines now that we're aiming to meet. That puts us on programme, and if you look at the financial statements and the predictability of the programme and the lines of the forecast spends that we're providing, those are the sorts of dates now that we are intending to fulfill. Clearly, there's going to be some crucial meetings along the way now, hence the local liaison, working with the parishes. We're very determined to get this right. We want to work with the local community, we want to make the scheme credible, and we want to make it viable for the users as well. So a great deal of work ahead of us, and we're confident that we can achieve it.
Thank you, Mr. Walmsley. So the proposal is a report to the Assembly and the Board in September. Councillor Kelly?
Mr. Chair, those are recommendations that the Assembly supported. I would like to highlight one discussion that arose in our discussion on this, and that was the one relating principles that exercise like this has been conducted under. It says in the report on page 57 that it was carried out in accordance with the consultation principles of the Greater Cambridge City Deal Partnership. None of the Assembly members remember that having been discussed through an Assembly meeting. And I think it latterly has been established that it wasn't actually in accordance with the consultation principles of the Greater Cambridge City Deal Partnership. It was the County Council version of a similar thing. There is, I think, a question about whether that has ever been formally debated, evaluated and discussed. There are, I think, approaches to consultation that each of the three councils has established, and it may well be that the county council's one is the right one, but it did seem important to Assembly members that we knew what we were doing and why, and the best way of putting that right would be to bring that as a short report back to the next cycle of the meeting, so we can absolutely be clear what is our Bible, what is the standard we're setting for ourselves, and what we would like to be judged.
Well, John Briggs.
Thank you, Chairman. If I could just ask a question on what Stuart said in paragraph 21, where we've got 77% of the respondents usually travelling by car, then we've got a quarter travelling by bus, and then a quarter really travelling by cycle, which to me means 125% of the people.
Not all at the same time.
The way the percentages work out is percentage of usage, so 70% of the usage was by car, and of those that responded, 23%. It's not a finite number, it's just a proportionate distribution of those that responded to the consultation who used the corridor as a means of travel.
Well, I'm not quite sure how they relate to each other then. I suppose we're talking about up to 2,900 responses out of 13,000. So there is a sense that the percentage split is that 70% are using cars as a means of travel, and 23% of a sample that was taken. The document is quite detailed in its response, but it is a very distribution of traffic. So I'm not clear, but it's just I think these figures aren't meant to have to 100. It's a proportionality of usage along the corridor of those that respond against any particular means of travel they choose to use. I have to admit, I don't quite understand that.
I'll clarify that for you separately.
Okay, okay. Councillor
Thank you, Chair. I think what we're talking about today is the results of the consultation. And I think it's just worth saying that I think it's been a stunning success as a consultation exercise. I know it's had its detractors, and some people have had questions about it, but the results are astonishing. And I don't know if anyone's looked at the Excel spreadsheet that is on the website that has got the results of the consultation. You know, and we clearly say 2,196 people responded, but this is an absolutely minute writing, and thousands of people have responded. And I was absolutely staggered as I managed through this to see what a fantastic response we've had. So if you judge it by the results of the exercise, we have absolutely achieved what we set out to do, which was to consult the people of Cambridge and Cambridgeshire and get their views, and they have spoken and they have given us their views. The other thing that I think is very interesting is how this box 16, which was do you have any other comments, how many people have filled in box 16 with how many other comments they've got. So it's absolutely not a question of just saying that they tick the yes no boxes early on. We've got lots and lots and lots of free-form information. I think it's going to be a challenge for officers to come compress all that and draw something out of it. But as an exercise, it seems to have absolutely achieved its objective of getting, at a very early stage, the views of the people who are affected. And what more could you want by that? The The second point I'd like to make is I think this box 16 is very interesting to pull out. And I'm, Chairman, with your permission, just going to spend a little time reading some of the comments that people have put in this box 16 when it says, do you have any other comments? And I mean, I have been selective because I think this is a great concept of creating a transport corridor. But this is what members of the public have said. The city deal of this route offers a once-in-a-generation opportunity to future-proof transport. It is a great opportunity to create a new route into Cambridge. The congestion is really bad around Madingley Marsh and Merrion Cemetery. Something needs to be done. I would very much support more consistent and streamlined transport into Cambridge from Camberwell. We need a bus from Camberwell to Ambrose, faster journey times during peak time. Madingley Road needs a bus named desperately. The whole way down, the traffic is completely ridiculous and makes the journey tiresome. Many times I would like to take the bus, it just takes far too long. I think there should be a dedicated bus route between Camberwell and areas where most of the people work. I commute daily from St Neots to Cambridge by bus, and the proposed options make a lot of sense. And here's a modal shift comment. I would definitely consider using the bus instead of the car if I knew journey times were reliable. I would also consider cycling to work from Camberwell if there were improvements to cycleways. It's important that something is done sooner rather than later. Radical solutions are needed. And I think that's what I'm hearing back from the consultation. And that's what I think we should look at in September. So I thoroughly endorse this, and I think it's been a great success, and a big tribute to the officers, and particularly also some officers who aren't present here today, who work, actually Heather, I think, particularly, who's worked very hard. Thank you.
And I think we've got some other messages as well on the consultation. I'm interested also in that table on, that you mentioned this Swansea on page 59, because clearly there's a number of issues. We've got issues that are not within our purview, but still matter, including the Girton interchange, which is quite critical. But we also have a number of options, including various variations, and comments from landowners and others adjacent to the scheme. Any other comments on that? Councillor Davis?
Well, only really on the Girton interchange, I'm sure, just to record, I think the report from the inspectors on the A14 would be good at Girton interchange, which would be at the moment, and the minister, I think, is due to respond by the 13th, thank you, 13th of May. So I think we need to watch what comes out of that from the ministry.
Okay. Along with the county council, the city deal will continue to take an interest in reshaping that choice. So if we go back to the recommendations and taking account of Councillor Vick's point of reviewing the consultation principles and taking a paper back. I mean, I think this was the first consultation that the city deal has led, and I think there have been sort of adaptations since, and I think there's been some learning from it, but clearly we do want to be clear that we're matching each of the consultations with the standard. I think overall, on each of our consultations, the main aim is to put forward the options in front of the public, so there may be imperfections, but we really have stimulated, as Councillor Burke has said, a high level of debate, a clear opportunity for people to say their views, and it's down to both the members of the Assembly and also the board to make sure that they read the detail, because before we take the decisions in September, we really have to be well informed. So we've got recommendations under paragraph 4 here, and it carries forward the other point that you made there in terms of the appraisal. So I'm going to put the recommendations under paragraph 4 to the board. Are those in favour? Thank you. And I know that you're abstaining on that, Nigel?
I declared an interest.
Yes, okay. So that's fair enough. So we recorded that interest. So we move on to item 11, which is the Chisholm Trail.
Sorry, Chair, thank you.
Carry on.
More percentages, I'm afraid, but the scheme, you're all very familiar with it.
has undergone consultation during the same period, during the autumn of 2015. No real surprises in the results that we received from that. In particular, we've got up to 86% in favour of the scheme, which is what we, I mean, clearly those are high numbers, but we consider that the way that this has been put out there, the way that we engage with those users and those that we potentially think will benefit from this, this is seen as a very positive scheme indeed. So, you know, it's one that we would we're keen now to get on with. There was good support as well for the entire route, and even to the point of undertaking some street lighting in some sections along the route, particularly where we think that we could provide that within the scope of the scheme without intruding too much on the environmental impact that that may cause. The most important additional features were tree planting, cycle parking, habitat creation, and opening the area a bit more to leisure activities. So there was some very good constructive feedback that we had on that. In parallel with the consultation, we are still engaging with landowners. It's still a big issue for us to get this scheme through. We've got some ongoing groups working now and teams actively liaising with that. I had a meeting myself with Network Rail, regional director level, to sort of talk through the scheme. And as far as they're concerned, there's no showstoppers on this one in terms of Network Rail, which I think is really positive, given that
Their response or the timing of their response?
Well, that's a different issue. So certainly, you know, let's take one step at a time. But I mean, to get the fact that they don't strongly oppose it gives us a very, very good position to be in. And so what we're doing now is developing packages, and one of the recommendations here is that we now need to go for planning to get some approval on some of the aspects of the scheme. And if you look at page 72, Plan 1, you can see there how it's been divided into two parts. If you look at the dotted line, we're proposing a 3.5 metre path there. There are some issues still in that area around flood risk and heritage issues, so hence the narrower the path the better. We still retain this sort of the width that we can segregate and provide some safe means of access down there for pedestrians and cyclists. So that goes well. The southern section, more through the sort of urban landscape, proposal areas for it to be 5 metres wide. Here we'll be introducing and considering the introduction of street lighting. So that's the proposal for the application. And the section north of Coleman's Lane, much of this, as you know, lies in the environmental flood zones, as I mentioned. So wide footpaths are problematic there, and I think, honestly, we're wise to consider that. We are taking advanced measures as well because of the work we're doing with the Kennedy's past, present and future, working very closely with them on the local chapel and how we can mitigate some of the impact there, particularly with the subway. And we've done some advanced work on engineering aspects to see just how feasible it is to get that through. So really we're just sort of consulting, looking at options so that we can get to a position where when we've got approval of the plan application, the scheme is almost ready to go, which I think is where the board would like to be. And going back again to financial monitoring, forecasting, we want to be ahead of ourselves on this one with what we deliver. So I think all in all, it's been a very positive experience for those involved, and pleased to do those recommendations today.
Thank you, Mr. Walmsley. Councillor Baker, your recommendations from the court?
Yes, indeed I do, Chair. Both the questions we had and the Assembly were both very positive about this. It was an interesting conversation that developed as a result of our question of Rob King's contribution. He's running a local logistics business by bicycle across the city, spoke very persuasively about how the scheme has the potential to make an economic impact within the city. Something which I think we've all taken on board for the project to get as far and progressive as we have. I think it was something that the Assembly particularly wanted to put a marker down and say, can we make sure that we develop the means of measuring shift when this scheme comes alive, which means doing things before as well as after, because it is quite a seminal concept that we're using here rather than just a little bit of a scheme. And there is the potential for us to learn a lot about economic impact, I think, because we haven't done many schemes like this. I'm not sure many schemes are done like this on a national basis, and I think given the original discussion we had about our programme and the role of cycle schemes in it, it would be really useful to learn something about economic impact from it, which could strengthen future such evaluation of other schemes.
Thank you, yeah, no, I certainly support that. I mean, when you're doing an assessment, you don't know which way it's going to go, but I think it's worth doing. My two questions would be, firstly, following up the cycling campaign, Mr. Walton, about some of the junctions on the route. And the other question is just getting some kind of feel for it going forward. Is this, how will the work that it will develop into be parcelled? I'm just unclear that this is going to be one scheme all done at one go. And I appreciate it's at early stages, but what is the pattern of the expected pattern of delivery?
Thank you, Joe. Yes, absolutely correct, because the idea is that we progress this scheme in the most form shape we can, and that will mean advanced works in some areas. I think the best thing I can do for you is to put together a more detailed programme next time and bring this before you, so you can see the sequence of works that we have proposed. So I think we're in a better position to do that. In terms of junctions, most of this route is off-road, and where it isn't, we've managed to build a subway, and where we haven't built a subway, we've done some. There is some configuration around some crossing points along the route, which will need to be looked at, and we'll need to find a detail of it. I think also when we come forward with the cross-city cycling proposals, which is, you can remember when we spoke before, this is our spine route through the city, cross-city cycling strategic, it's going to lead into this. Then we will have issues about junctions, and I think we'll deal with those as we bring those forward, taking on board what's been said today, and the considerations that we can come up with there. But there's certainly some good advances, and what I've seen so far in the team's work is that there's some quite innovative ideas coming out of that, which I think are quite useful, and the board would appreciate some of that.
Okay. Councillor Burkett.
I think that schedule would be very useful. Will that be for June, that idea?
We'll due back in June, but I can certainly bring an update on the programme for you.
Okay. I appreciate all the work that's been put into this. We wouldn't want it to be held up wholly by some of the dialogue we never wrote, so I think if there's a way to bring forward a large element of it, then we would do that. We've got 4 recommendations. We've also, again, just recording the number of consultation responses, 1,457 responses. It's not just a small number of people who want to see this bill. So, 4 recommendations in front of us. Do we agree? Please, thank you. Item 12, and we've got obviously some of the issues raised by both Councillor Orgy earlier on and Mr. Burton from the Suffolk Chamber of Commerce. So one of the things we would like to do is just to follow up that with a 5th recommendation, but if you could introduce again, Mr. Gerald. Oh, good, I'm glad Mr. Walton got a break. So Jeremy Smith, please, and then Councillor Baker can contribute to the assembly.
Thank you, Chair. The report you've got in front of you sets out work that has been undertaken to date, looking at the A1307 corridor between Cave Hill and Cambridge. As you say, there are 4 recommendations in front of you, and the Assembly recommended a change to one of those recommendations, and as you note, there's discussion about a further recommendation, which I think actually probably expands somewhat on the recommendation B in the way that the Assembly were intending. So I don't think there's any issue there in terms of conflicting recommendations, but I think it is an expansion of recommendation B for where the Assembly took it slightly down. It's just putting in a bit more detail of what will be looked at in terms of the loan option. And I think you've got a copy of the suggested wording, and Mr. Hughes certainly has. In terms of the work, consultants of USP Parsons Brinckerhoff were commissioned to look at the corridor in terms of options that would address the whole corridor, and also whether there are options that address particular problem areas on the corridor. The high-level work, looking at whole corridor options, looked at the dual, the 1307 between Haverhill and Four Wentways, with 3 different options along the route. A busway option all the way from Haverhill to Cambridge, and the opening of the railway line all the way between Haverhill and Cambridge. And the conclusion of that work in a city deal context was that the busway and rail schemes were not at this time viable. The benefit to cost ratios were not disastrous in the way that some benefit cost ratios can be disastrous, but they were not at a level, and the costs involved in both of those pieces of infrastructure were so high that it was beyond the ability in officers' view and in the consultants' view of City Deal to resource, and certainly in the short term. With the road option, the option did not perform strongly. However, there is further technical work to be undertaken, and as I believe you, Chair, Councillor Bates and Councillor Hickford from the Assembly attended a meeting in Haverhill earlier this week, at which that was discussed further, and those discussions actually concord with the Assembly's consideration of the road issues. So further work is planned looking at the road issues. And it is worth saying, since the 1307 study was initially commissioned, there's actually been quite a lot of movement in terms of prospective further development, even over and above what is considered in the emerging Cambridge and South Cambridge local plans that are currently going through examination. So even since the study was commissioned, there's quite a lot more in the area that we need to look at. So we will be looking at more of those options in that context. However, bringing us back to the study and looking particularly at the city deal context of public transport movements and pedestrian and cycle movements on the corridor towards Cambridge and linking up the business parks on the corridor, a number of options are recommended to be taken forward to, or should I say concepts are recommended to be taken forward to public consultation at a high level in the same way as the initial A428 work has been consulted on at a high level. That is to say, we are not putting schemes in front of people, we are putting ideas in front of people and asking for their views. Now, those options include public transport improvements between Four Wentways and the edge of Cambridge, either on the route of the A1307, and I think we should seek to be fairly unambiguous that we are not looking to drive the busway on the road across the docks as part of a recommendation of this report. There is actually quite a lot of space on the A1307 road alignment. However, if we're looking at how we link into the Admiral's campus, we might well want to consider options that go across country at that point, as we get very close to the edge of Cambridge. Consideration of park and ride capacity, both at the existing David Road Park and Ride and potentially in the Four Wentways area, is also considered worth taking forward. We want to look further, or we want to consult on options for bus priority in the Linton area, and there is quite a lot of concepts work looking at pedestrian and cycle facilities along the length of the corridor all the way to Haverhill, but also with a particular focus on linking up the business parks more robustly and improving those links towards Cambridge. disadvantage of relying on the screen is if you leave it on that, the screen of course goes off. So in terms of that, we then have a consultation plan appended to this report. And if the Assembly are content that we should, or sorry, if the Board are content that we should go to consultation, we have proposed that in June of this year. I don't think I have much more to say, Chairs. I'll be taking any questions.
All right. Thank you, Jeremy, and thank you to the two early speakers. Councillor Dick, and the comments, including the discussion we've had on this.
Thanks, Chair. Just to say up front, the first element of Jeremy's report in relation to the detachment of the road option from what would be proposed to go forward with was, we felt, accommodated by the way the amended air of our recommendations. But I have no idea what you're going to bring forward as a further recommendation, so maybe that's even better. But I think we understood the distinction between things that could be proven to a level that was justified to be a basis for the city deal funding, and proven to a level which may be open to other sources of pursuit, and that people were comfortable with that on the Assembly. What I would like to do is just to share with you some of the points which were raised in our discussion about the project as a whole, as it looked to people when they read the report, and in no particular order. Some of these relate to each other and some of them don't. The impacts of growth in Sawston, and is there a potential for a route via Sawston to be included amongst the concepts, which is not included at the moment. It's a big settlement just off the trajectory of the project, and has the potential perhaps to add critical mass to the use of what is developed. Secondly, practical point about the consultation. I think it was made in previous exercises. It's the diagram question again. Obviously, diagrams can help get across what we're trying to achieve, but they can also confuse people a lot too. And we felt that the diagram that we saw in the report was likely to leave the public rather unclear whether we really were talking about a concept or whether we were trying to be more precise than that. I think we understood that we were really talking about a concept, but if the diagram could sort of distance itself from detail, I think it would avoid some confusion when it went to people. The importance of an overall vision for the scheme. There was a feeling that that was missing. When we talked about the earlier project on the agenda around the A428 and Madingley Road, I think there was a much greater sense of where people were coming from and where they were trying to get to, and that seemed a bit less clear in the way this project looks at this point. And I think the comment perhaps relates to the point that Councillor Orgy was making earlier. A request that there could be some focus on cycling and walking, which could generate the need for a specific link to this end, not necessarily following the other trajectories for buses. We felt there was a potential challenge if there were off-road concepts pursued for them to be achieved inside the tranche 1 timescale. But interesting, the comment that Jeremy's just made about off-road elements of this scheme, that the diagrams that we saw included a concept 2A, which does appear to be quite widely off-road, and I think to many people going through the Gods landscape. Given what Jeremy just said, not clear where that concept really stands in relation to the conversation. And an important issue about potential distinctions between putting down bus infrastructure, which this project would try and do, and the services that get operated on it. A particular point being raised about the tariff structure that applies to people using buses from Grantham Park, which would appear to, at present, act as a bit of a disincentive for people using public transport between there and the city. And that generated a further conversation in the Assembly about the need to try and reach some agreement between the city deal and operators, given that we are effectively proposing to make very significant investments in the infrastructure of what are private businesses. What should we be able to get back from operators about commitments to the way they will operate services on those routes? And I think there are some progress about establishing that dialogue that have been made more recently, so that's good. So our position at the end was, yes, we support the recommendations amended as I've described. I think there are some points worth listening to about what Assembly members were saying there. And it would be useful if they could be, insofar as possible, addressed in the way we frame the consultation, so that we make sure we capture really what we need to do, what we need to hear about, rather than having to go back again with further concepts at a later time.
I think that's really interesting and useful set of points. Any feedback on those? Because I'm proposing that we refer to the consultation.
There is nothing there that I would be unhappy to take into account.
Okay. So now there's some good scrutiny and analysis. So we've got in front of us a series of recommendations, and for the purpose of clarity, the extra part is actually proposed to be additional wording to B. B is already in line with the Assembly's recommendation, left the issue open on the major road intervention. So the suggestion is that the wording that's in front of us, we actually have the existing wording for the second hill. There's only one hill, there's two here. And then we add on top of that wording, which is basically, and commissions with partners further traffic counts and modelling assessments of the case for improvement to the A1307 all the way to Haver Hill, with the issue there not being our direct concern, but a shared issue between the two county councils. So, Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I just actually add just a couple of points through? I think it's very important that we work with Suffolk County Council, and certainly the Council for Suffolk for Transport in Haver this week. We not also forget that actually Haver Hill is right in the corner, and we need to engage with Essex as well, because actually that's very close within that. We're looking at developments on this corridor, because there will be developments within Essex as well as in Suffolk in those districts. And I'm very pleased that Suffolk will attempt to participate in those processes. The bit I really want to actually tease out, because it's not been mentioned today, which is about the A505. And that actually is a very, very busy road. This one is in the county. And I think when we're doing the consultation, when we're actually looking at the corridor, we need to take account of not just the corridor between Haver Hill and Whitway, but also what happens before Whitway's in whichever direction you can go from there. So my request is when we start to look at that, particularly in respect of developments that might be coming forward in future local plans, etc., is to not forget the A505 within this process that we're going through. I'm content certainly for the recommendation that you've highlighted about doing some more work on traffic counts and what with our colleagues in Suffolk and Essex, and I'm content with that recommendation.
Okay. Councillor.
3 points, if I may. Can I ask what the status of the reports are, the WSP processing reports? I mean, they're amazingly thorough, and they're great. They've all got draft written. And we've obviously heard from April in the Chamber of Commerce, they've got some challenge to some of the conclusions yourself said that some things have moved on in planning and assumptions since they were commissioned. What happens to these, moving it from draft to something final? Because I wouldn't want them to be, in any sense, sort of adopted when there's still challenge and different views on them.
I think as technical reports, they stand on their own. I don't think there would be an issue in removing the word draft. They say what they say, and considered with our documentation, we have a clear picture of what the policy position for the city deal is, on the road option and on consultation on the other option, subject to a decision today. However, we do need to do further work on the road options, and this is a fast-moving area in terms of development. I think if we decide we're not going to finalise them and we wait to do further work, I think with the amount that's going on in the area, we may never finalise them. So I would be inclined to draw a line somewhere and do further pieces of work that add to the evidence base rather than to keep it open.
But if, add means possibly come up with a different and more positive decision in due course on the basis of new evidence.
There is nothing to say that a further piece of work can't supersede parts of this piece of work, certainly.
That satisfies the chairman in that answer. And the second one is actually just to echo something Councillor Dick said. I think a lot of Salisbury residents in South Cambridgeshire would like to be somehow woven in to the thinking behind this. I mean, it is just off the edge of the strait of it is a big area. Whether the consultation question could be framed in such a way that there is a particular question pertaining to whether people think Salisbury should be added in. I'm completely neutral whether it's added in for a cycleway or part of the routing in a busway or something like that. But I think, and I don't want to sort of change anything here, but if the consultation is only launched in June, there's enough time, it seems to me, to think about other questions. And if there was a particular question where we could ascertain the strength of feeling about Salisbury and some views of people on Salisbury, I think that would be greatly appreciated. That's my second of three questions.
Okay. And I think we've already had that sort of endorsement of the following as suggested. So, I mean, we've come with...
And my third question is why do we have to wait till June?
You can answer that one.
That would be the pre-election period for the Cambridge and South Cambridgeshire local elections, and the impossibility of getting a consultation out in time scale before the elections or completing it before the pre-election period started, unfortunately.
Great, I just wanted everyone to be aware of that one. Thank you.
I mean, I think what we've got in the initial feedback on the consultant's report and the points made about the A505 and particularly about Salisbury is just that feeding that into the diagrammatic representation within the consultation and the context. And whilst other people are out knocking on doors, you can get it right. So.
Our design consultants are perhaps rather better at diagrams than our transport consultants.
Well, I'm grateful we've got some design consultants. So if we have a look at the recommendations, then we have that revised wording which you've got in front of you, Mr. Watts, which is essentially to follow up with the joint study with Suffolk. In taking this report, we're not actually passing final comment on the rail between here and Haverhill at all. What we're always saying is that this is the opportunity that we've got within the city deal. And obviously as part of the broader discussion with Suffolk, we would have a look at other options, but we clearly want to just get to an agreed position on the whole of the A1307. So we've got the recommendation with the extra wording which adds, and commission with partners further traffic counts and modelling assessments of the case for improvement to the A1307 all the way to Haverhill full stop. And the other comments that have been made by both the Assembly, by Suffolk, representations and by the board today. So with that in mind, can I then put the 4 recommendations with that revision to the vote? All those in favour? Thank you. Right, we move to item 40. Sorry, we move to item 30. And so we've got another issue which there was some questions on earlier, and I think in line with the Assembly we're also going to revise and review how we take questions in future. People can ask their questions at the beginning, but it may be on occasions that it's valuable to have the questions immediately in front of us. So I think I've got you down to consider a report by Mr. Hughes. So is Mr. Walkley coming in? You've got a good Mr. Walkley there.
I think we'll recall actually that this particular scheme was brought forward some time ago in relation to earlyworks, advanced works in Western Orbital Study. And junction 11 and 11 was identified in Western Orbital last time to bring that study forward to assess whether there could be benefits in linking that junction into the proposed dwellings and site. So the study started to look at it. At the time we did that, I think I mentioned to you, this wasn't strictly speaking a city build project, although it didn't have a close relationship with the outcomes of the scheme, but Western Orbital. And that as a result of that, we would incur cost of risk as a result. So there would be, and I think as we go forward on city build schemes, we will come up against this from time, various times. So we will need to consider those implications. So this particular scheme has progressed to initial study and understanding more than anything else. And the solution that we were proposing was a plus-only exit from the M11 at junction 11. The outline discussions will take place with Harvard England, who haven't given any suggestion that they object to that proposal. But clearly we haven't all that detail, so there will still be negotiations with them on that. We've also got proposals for Trumpet and Meadows, the developments that might take place in there. We've got the bus operational issues as well. Current operators don't run a service in that particular one. Clearly, listening to what's been said today, the chances are that would change, and over a period of time, the business case may actually come forward as to say it's an viable route. The proposal is that we could actually now take this out of a standalone project and build it into the Western Orbital project, and which we are currently in consultation on, heading over to one tonight after this meeting, as to integrate it now as part of a much more strategic-like project. And the Assembly at the meeting took a view on that recommendation.
Which does a bit of shareholders.
So, if I could refer to the questions that were earlier on the agenda, I think that my readings that members of the Assembly are fully signed up to the need for improved western access to the biomedical campus, and the concept of the need for people to get through places that they live, Papworth, Campbell and so forth, and big concentration in the biomedical campus is well understood and well supported, and clearly the city deal must play a major role in assisting that. The issue that we took with this was whether we were going to be using public money effectively in pursuing a little part of this on its own. Sorry. Just gone. About pursuing one little bit of the Western Orbital concept on its own, ahead of the rest, when we're only just now consulting on the rest. Reading the
swapping over, if you change that one that's there, and see if that works any better.
It's only this is an experiment in the true Cambridge tradition.
Happy to participate in the experiment.
It's not work, but anyway.
Is it not?
It's working. It's better. Okay.
On members on reading the report, in particular the sections on the issues and the risks, felt that undertaking this project independently of the bigger concept was having the potential either to preempt the approach to the orbital scheme that we're currently consulting on. It would fit with some options that are in that consultation. It would not fit with others. Therefore, it would either be preempting the outcome of that consultation or running the risk of development expenditure, which may well have to be scrapped or substantially amended. And the other element of this for us, I think, was that there is some doubt about whether this could be achieved faster by starting it faster, because the bottlenecks in relation to bus access to the land of the campus are not completely answered by just this junction. I think one part of it, and maybe addressing other parts in concert with the better way of achieving it. So the bottom line for the majority of members of the Assembly, both sides of this question were debated and both arguments put, but the preponderance of people present felt that this should probably be sitting in the middle of the orbital strategy. We were not going to achieve a faster outcome by undertaking this separately, and that we ran the risk of wasting some of our valuable money in something which had to be substantially revised later.
Thank you, Councillor. I think I've been told that this problem with the microphones has never happened before.
Right, we've got microphone back. So we've got that response. Before I open it out, Monica, is there anything that you want to add to that, Mr. Moulton?
No, I don't think so. I think it was very well debated at the Assembly and very strongly carried out. So no, it was from my perspective.
Okay.
Right, well I'll take
comments from the board on the same issue. We'll continue this discussion.
I feel very strongly that we should continue with the assessment and push on looking at this, particularly with Highways England. Every time we talk to them, we learn something about it, about their views, and that we have it as a separate project. That is completely and utterly separate. Do we actually start digging? That's a separate debate. But I think the research and the report work, I think we should do. We're doing a lot of work on the Camborne A48 corridor, doing a lot of work on consultation on the Western Orbital, and I think it's important that we get as much data as we can right now on this. I think what's happened since the Assembly looked at this, and the Assembly vote was 8-7, so it was pretty close, is we've had a very, very strong representation today from the Cambridge Biomedical Campus, from Mr. Haggett who came. We've had a very strong representation from Pat White and Claire Tripp, who are obviously responding quite aggressively to what they heard from the Assembly. They're very major employers, they're very important for people in the area. It's not just a lot of people trying to go to work in that area, workers as we've seen on the map within South Cambridgeshire, but as they also said, a lot of patients in their area. I think it's absolutely crucial. I think it's completely logical that buses should be able to whiz off the M11 and get straight into the guided busway. And I think we should pursue this investigation as soon as possible, particularly since we heard that separate buses, separate from the existing operation, might be interested in one. So I commend it to you.
Any other comments? John Bridge.
Chairman, I very much support Councillor challenges which otherwise would come. I don't think we've got time to wait. We've had very strong representation, as you say, today from the biomedical campus. I have talked with many of the businesses that are involved, and they genuinely believe that this is something that we should push ahead with now as a separate item. I know we talk and say, well, we're not quite sure the buses that may or may not run, but the businesses involved are very certain that there will be buses that they will want to use, and they will, in fact, have to sponsor if they're not run separately, because they need to get those people in and out of their businesses without any delay. And my concern is if we put this off and attach it to other things, we are going to end up with a problem which we will regret.
Councillor Bates.
I can understand the two previous speakers, but when I read the report, it's clear that the highway agency are not quite on board yet. It's also clear to me that the bus operators are not quite on board yet. So I do understand members wishing to proceed and do some more work, and I think that more work actually refers to the organisation in particular. And I also believe that we've now started a consultation on the West Orbital route, and I think there is a suggestion really that I perhaps would wish to pursue, which is actually making sure that these two do interlink. That doesn't stop us doing more work, that doesn't stop us talking to highways in England or bus operators to firm up. And if there's an opportunity to bring something forward, well perhaps that might be an opportunity which we wouldn't want to miss. So there is no point in actually having a junction without a bus. And there's no opportunity to have a junction without highways in England because it's their road. So we do need to take very serious account of what they're doing. So I'm all in favour of doing our work. I'm all in favour of talking to those bodies and also the businesses, understanding businesses, understanding, if you like, the views of the environmental centre out in Brooks and Bathurst, and then to start to come. But I'll perhaps just do that a little bit before I came here. I worked in Bristol, and the Bristol surgeons did a lot of work not in their hospital but outside of their hospital. So they did a lot of outpatient work down in Devon and Cornwall, and I would wish to see what Pattern are actually doing to address some of those issues. So we do need to engage with them. I don't think that's a little bit of a history lesson. So I'm actually quite drawn to linking into the Western Orbital. If there's an opportunity for it to come forward, I think we need to know about that as soon as possible, yes. But I think we do need to do some more work, and I do think it's important to link it to the Western Orbital to get a complete picture.
I'm also sceptical on this, in that it doesn't get the buses to Addenbrooks or the biomedical campus straight away, and we haven't had any clear evidence that the bus operator will fill the gap. So I'm not sure how we'll proceed on this, but I think we'll probably be putting the alternate recommendations basically before us, and see which one is supported. Perhaps Professor Slade is going to have to cast in vote.
Well, I was very impressed by the representations from the biomedical campus. I think they made a very strong point. And provided that we're not going to start digging up ground, which is not one of the recommendations anyway, I think it does make sense to continue to do the study, particularly linking it in with the Western Orbital and with the Highways Agency, so we know better where we stand with them. I think that simply sets preparatory ground, but doesn't commit us to anything.
Okay, I mean, we've got, if we just look at the key wording, we're talking about wording of recommendation 2. And to demonstrate that we haven't actually pre-planned anything on this, we've got agreed to proceed with further development of the proposal to assess its final viability. Well, I'm happy with that wording. I'm just not happy to commit to it being transformed, because we the knowledge at this stage that we can actually deliver it in tranche one.
I'd be happy with that. Yeah.
Okay. Chairman, I would like it included in tranche one, so I would slightly.
Councillor Bates, are you happy if we just simplify the wording?
I think there is a way forward actually to perhaps satisfy both of our points of view, which you might say. So I'm content with that change.
Yeah.
If my colleague is saying yes to that, then I'm content with that as well.
We're happy to take the risk of further work being done, and I'm also happy, as the new Vice Chair, if you want to take the lead on following this project through.
Thank you, and I'll just explain that the reason I have to take the words out is I don't think taking the words out condemns it necessarily to be in tranche 2. It just leaves open which tranche it will be in.
Councillor Bates, you want to contribute your bit to this, please?
I just wanted to ask a question, Chair, because in reporting this back to the Assembly, I think one of the questions that they would appreciate understanding the answer to is if you go forward with the suggestion that you've now got on the table, that presupposes that there will be resources spent on doing what you described. Are you putting some limit on those resources?
I think this is the kind of project we keep a regular report on, so I think it's appropriate to come back with a budget that we will work up to, and then we'll come back to both the Assembly and the Board. So without adding further to the burden from Mr. Walter, I just think we should set a budget and work through that part of the development work and then make a decision. Because in addition to the issue of the bus service, we still have issues of design and issues from Highways England that might arise.
But I hope we're not talking about a budget for this report, because I wouldn't want that to covert way of just kicking it in the grass. It's going to take another 6 months to come up with a report. A budget in order to, before you start work on what we want done.
We agree if we have a vote, that is the view of the Board, and remembering that it's the councillors that have got the bigger vote power on decisions like this, to go ahead with the wording as amended, but that we come back with a financial paper both to the Board and the Assembly on what we're actually going to commit to. So I'll want to move the recommendations with that minor alteration. 1 and 2, those in favour? Thank you. We keep the project going, but we've got to monitor whether how it's proceeding, and then make a judgment about whether it's a sole project or gets integrated. Right, item 14, I want to know that myself. Do we have a double report here from Andrew Mill and Mr. microphones allowing. Smart Cambridge Smart Technology City Management Platform proposal.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thank you for members. I'm sorry if I'm touching anything here in case it explodes, but I'm sure I will. So,
it's not very good technology.
Thank you for the opportunity to bring back. So the Board asked officers to work up a smart city programme back in August last year, and we came forward with an outline proposal in the autumn, and we've had some work up. So I'm just going to give an overview of kind of what we're trying to achieve quickly now, and then Dan will talk to a very short presentation, which will just give you hopefully more a visual flavour of some of what we're hoping to deliver. So that would be helpful too. So basically, the proposition that the belief is that by utilising some of the technology that exists now and is increasingly becoming available, particularly the expertise that resides in this great magical small city, we can address some of the challenges we face. I'll talk loudly. We're going to try and address some of the challenges we face at congestion, policies like saying policies and some of those things, by bringing data together to give us new insights into the way that the city works. So there's a proposal to, I think, essentially gather more data through sensors, bring that data into a central hub, have a place where the data can kind of be stored and shared, and hopefully as openly as possible. So now I have great insights, which will give greater analysis and understanding of the way it works, the way the track moves, the way people are using the place, so that we can kind of bring forward more impactful interventions. In particular, I think taking advantage of some of the technology that we've seen in other cities, giving passengers and potential passengers more information about potential travel options, so that they make more informed options, hopefully more ones that get them to the place they're going quicker and better and safer and easier. So for instance, Dan will kind of hopefully show something around the idea of making it easier for people who arrive nearly at Cambridge Station to find the way to their destination and give them more information about the travel options they have. Ideally, we understand that there are a lot of people who come to Cambridge for the first time and come by rail, so there's an awful lot of visitors, 6.5 million visitors a year approximately. There's a lot of people coming for business reasons. It's not always easy when you arrive at Cambridge Station to know how to get where you're going. So if we can have a smarter, more integrated, real-time digital information for them, then they'll hopefully be able to choose whether they want to get the bus, because they'll know how to find it, where to find it, or walk, because actually it's not difficult to walk from the station into the city on a bright day, if you've got good legs. Or maybe they'll be bike hire, or whatever it will be. They won't have to just jump into a taxi or other kind of petrol or diesel-driven vehicle. So there's something very exciting around that. I think the idea of what might be called a motion map, which would be equivalent to what I think exists on London, where you can just see the different options from getting from A to B, how long it might take, how crowded the bus might be, whether there's car parking spaces at the end of it, or whether there's bike parking spaces at the end of it potentially. Just using data and sensors and real-time information in a much more informed interesting way, something visual kind of way. So that's, I think, a really exciting practical outcome. There's then lots of kind of outcomes which we can't quite predict, but we kind of believe are likely to happen. The more that you bring data together, the more you just start to understand things you didn't even know you didn't understand, and the interaction between different practices in the city. So having a what's called a smart data hub, which I think will allow us to kind of bring that data together and share. This sort of strand of work in the city deal, I think, is in some ways one of the most exciting ones, in that it really plays to the strength of the partnership. So the ABC of academia, business and councils that we often talk about is really playing a part in this, in the project team that we've got together. The advisory board of many of the leading high-tech companies are actively kind of advising us on how to kind of best take this forward. It's leading edge stuff, it is new, it's innovative, and therefore sometimes it's not easy to exactly cost or predict the financial return on it, but it's very exciting. And if we get it right, Cambridge should become a world centre of smart city expertise. And it's a multi-trillion, billion-pound market. There are many, many cities in the world. They all want to solve similar problems to us. If we can help some of our businesses become the best in the world of those, that then plays to the strength of the city deal anyway. It's kind of a win-win, because we'll be making our economy stronger, while at the same time solving some of our other challenges. So I think that's one thing I wanted to say. The assembly, I think, the chair will kind of report was very supportive. We were lucky enough to have a workshop demonstration before last assembly meeting, which kind of gave a bit more of a flavour of where we might be going, some of the bits we might be seeing. And certainly the business representatives on the assembly were very supportive as well. So there's something about investing in this is directly good for those businesses affected, but more broadly good for the businesses in the city to start to feel and demonstrate that Cambridge can be a great smart city and to live up to its kind of traditions of innovation and new developments in engineering. So I think it's an exciting prospect. If you agree to the recommendation and support the investment at this stage, I think that's a very powerful signal to our private sector partners that the city being serious about this and wants to crack hold of it. I think in the context of a kind of emerging competitive market, it would be good for Cambridge to stand its mark on this field and on this market and make some progress and start to bring that smartness to Cambridge. So that's my overview. Dan will kind of whiz through the slides and give you a flavour of what we're doing.
Oh, you stole my stuff. So I should be really quick. So when we first came here, the programme was split into three areas. The smart city strategy, financing, resources. There's architecture, which underpins the solutions that we hope to develop, and it's the architecture that we're talking about today. So that's the data hub, sensors, connectivity, and they will drive the solutions that we hope to produce from that. And underpinning this work, government commissioned a study looking at something called intelligent mobility, travel needs and UK capability, and came up with three areas. One is improving mobility fit, that's so how might intelligent mobility increase access to better options and enable lifestyles. enhancing end-to-end journeys, so making people's journeys better and easier and removing pain points, so just making the travelling experience better. So that's what we've been looking at, how we can use data and technology to make journeys better and to encourage modal shift, which is what the City Deal is trying to do. So if we're putting in bus lanes to encourage faster journeys, we also need to give people better information, we need to make ticketing easier, and we need to make their journey through the transport system easier, so as they go from one mode to another, there are the pain points that are there at the moment. So they also do some user needs research, and digital technology is actually becoming essential to most people's traveller experiences. 54%, 72% of people have smartphones. So lots of people are already using digital technology. So what we want to do is we want to make Cambridge a place that promotes that and helps them by producing tools to help people navigate through the transport system here. So this is what we're proposing to do to build a data hub. We already have data around the city, but it sits there in silos. So we want to try and break it out of these silos and bring it together into one central point, but to also deploy other sensors to give us a richer understanding of what's happening on the transport network. So part of the work that we would do is around some development work, some data science work, about getting that data out and then actually onboarding it into the central point. We're also looking at how you get data from sensors and connected infrastructure into that central point, and so we're looking to invest in something called a wide area network, which is a communications layer. So that would be investing in some base stations and some software that would help us to transmit data. And then the data hub itself, it would sit on a server, and that's where all of the data would go into, and it would be structured in a way that then would allow third-party developers, so that could be application developers or citizens, to come and use the data and to build applications. And we were also looking to invest in some analytics and visualization software which will help people to easily use that data. And then that data would also help drive city management applications. And so we've been looking at some initial applications, as Andrew said. So one of them is a proof of concept journey planner that Milton Keynes have been developing called a motion map, and we would hope to bring that here. Now obviously there are journey planners available, but what motion map does is it creates a richer environment and gives people more information than your standard Google journey planners. So if I just show you an example of what they've done in Milton Keynes, it will give you bus arrival times, it will tell you how long you're on the journey, but it will also allow you to book tickets through it, and it will tell you how many seats are through on the bus, so that you know whether or not the bus is full. It tells you, or it gives you options, how long it's likely to take if you took the car, the bus. It tells you how much carbon dioxide your journey would produce, and also it will tell you the costs. And also it gives people information on how busy it is in the centre of Milton Keynes, so before you go in you know how busy certain areas are. So it looks to go over and above what most journey planners do at the moment. But sat underneath that is a rich ecosystem of data, and that's what we're looking to build up through the data platform. And obviously once that data is there, not only will it drive motion map, but hopefully other journey planners will be able to use that. So it will create a marketplace for tools. And one of the pieces of work we're doing at the moment with the university is looking to see how we can make real-time passenger information more accurate. So when you're stood at the bus stop, it tells you exactly how long it's going to take for the bus to arrive, but also exactly how long your onward journey might be. The work at the station gateway data is integral to that, so we're looking to give people who are coming into the station accurate, timely information, and in fact giving them information before they arrive at the station so they know exactly where they need to go, how long the journey is likely to take, where the buses are, and the aim will be to eventually allow people to book tickets easily, to be able to hire bikes, so just to make their journeys easier as they're moving through the city. And that data will also provide a baseline for city deal work, so it will give us a better, granular understanding of what's happening in the city. So these are some of the initial work we've done with Abellio and Brookgate Station Gateway. Abellio have experience of bringing information screens into other stations. So we've been working with people like Visit Cambridge, the BID, Abellio and Stagecoach to look at what sort of information we would want to present on those screens and how we could do it in a way that gives people the information they need for onward travel. And we'd also create an environment for innovation, so this is about stimulating innovation within Cambridge, getting developers using our data to build tools that they can then go on and sell to other cities, both nationally and internationally, about giving policymakers and residents the tools that they need to help to understand the data, and building the foundations for future applications. So the two that we've talked about are initial applications, but the platform will give us the data and the tools that we need to go on and develop further applications within the city. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you, Dan. Mr. Burke.
I'm very supportive of the principle. But I have got a few concerns. Firstly, I'm slightly annoyed that your slides weren't in our agenda pack. It's a very interesting vision, and everybody wants this sort of thing to happen. But this room has thinned out very considerably, and there's not many...
No, it thinned out before that started.
Not because of that. And therefore, there's been no opportunity for people who go through our agenda pack, and a lot of them, including us who read it, to see it in advance. So I think we're doing ourselves down, and you're doing yourself down by not promoting. And these 3 pages were not very big or very long, and actually that was quite interesting. So I would encourage you to, in future, flush out what you put to us in the agenda pack with some of this sort of stuff, and it might be more interesting, and you might get more buy-in, and we might get more buy-in from the wider community.
Okay, we will do.
Thank you. Secondly, I'm not entirely sure who we is. You say we're going to do this and we're going to do that. I don't really feel it's a city deal. Is it the county council that's doing it, funded by the city deal? I don't really have a handle on the governance. I don't understand how the relationship with the bus companies, are they going to pay for this data, or are we going to pay them to buy the data? So there's a business plan that I think is missing from this. In that same concept about who we is, I don't still understand whether we're doing all of this development ourselves. Is it county council IT staff who are doing it? We're going to have a tender and contract out to third-party providers and get the best consultants that we possibly can. And exactly how this is dovetailing with the university, who must have the biggest brains in the world on all of this, and how we're dovetailing with that. So I'm very happy with the recommendation, but what I would like to do is change number B, so that it's not a progress report in 6 months, but it's a progress report and business plan in 3 months. I know we're overloading the junior agenda like crazy, but I think we need a bit more from them a bit sooner, I'm afraid. I am supportive, but I don't think we're hearing enough from it.
Okay. So we picked up perhaps a bit wide from the assembly. Anything else? Is that right? Yeah.
No, that what we had to say was here, we noted that we supported the recommendations.
Okay. So the question then is the practicality of Councillor Burkett's request. And the basis to ask the question.
Well, just an observation really from my colleagues. I attended the workshop to give you some more confidence. I have seen all those previous slides. Apologies actually to Nigel because I've forgotten your colleague. It's Ian from the University. Ian, but the second name, Phil.
It's Ian Lewis, and he's from our University Information Services. And he spent an hour and a half with me going through this, and at the end of it, because I'm IT literate, but at the end of it, he absolutely convinced me that the things that can be done, even with data that we already have but don't process, is absolutely astonishing. So I was well and truly sold, and I fully support this initiative.
Apologies for reading his actions without knowing things. It all is that I took away from that about the data actually and everything else. I don't disagree about the business, the community and the timetable. My colleague exactly outcomes. What I wanted to see, and I got that message very clear from when I was talking to Ian about it, was we need some very clear outcomes, because you can spend the amount of money, but what I want to see is improvements, developments, and I want to see some outcomes. And I think that message came very clearly to me in the workshop, just trying to Francis these other issues. So I want to see some better outcomes within this as well.
Well, I think that would be part of it, isn't it? John Bruce, and then I'll go back to Dan.
Mr. Chairman, I have some concerns on the paper. Well, I fully support the Smart City agenda, indeed, as you will know, working with Peterborough and being chair of Peterborough, we actually became recognised as the world's Smart City this year, and so I've been very involved in this agenda. But this particular paper does concern me in terms of the fact that, to me, it's not a proper integrated business plan that's put together to us to understand exactly what we'll get as a result of investing 300,000. And there are clearly a number of questions. The first question is, who is actually going to own it? Because it's very important to understand if we're going to spend 300,000, that we know where that actually lies in terms of the ownership. And that certainly doesn't explain it to me. And that is very important going forward, not only the data, but the platform, and exactly where that lies. And that's not shown in this as a business plan. We say it's a first stage, and clearly, if we're going to invest in a first stage with that amount of money, we perhaps need to understand what the aspirations are as to where it's going from there, and what's going to happen in relation to that. Councillor Bates has mentioned, obviously, what we really want to know is what actually are the outcomes. It's lovely to see the pictures, and we know all the fancy things it can do, but actually, what is it actually going to do for the city deal? What are the real outcomes that come? And indeed, it does mention in the report about the fact that this is not available on a large-scale commercial, but the report kind of infers that it may not even be possible to achieve what it's setting out to do, and that in fact it might be much less, and we don't know where the business plan lies in terms of what money will be committed, and then if we're not able to do it, how much will the first stage and that cost. And it also mentions about staff time and resourcing going in, but it doesn't mention where those costs are going to live and who is going to pick up the tab for those. So I would really want to have more detailed information to understand those things before I could understand whether that was the right investment, although I fully support what we want to try and achieve.
Can I just throw in one last question for me, and that is how this 300,000 links to the money that we've already approved just after the so that's quite a few asks there now. I think we I'm happy to recommend that we approve this funding, but I just think following up Councillor Burkett's suggestion that we are looking for the appropriate timing of a business plan, and that would be whether that's 3 months or what.
I'll go down, you're right. So on the question of who is we, the City Deal has already kind of funded some money previously in last year's budget to kind of start paying for some resources. So some of that time is, as I understand, kind of is dedicated to this work. So County Council employees working for the City Deal Smart Cambridge programme specifically, and well as well. And then you get bits of this stuff is probably free for what we have, but anyway, we try. So it is a City Deal initiated kind of programme. The board has allocated money to this, and that's going into it. In terms of report back, as you mentioned, the comparison with the June agenda is we just set the agenda, but it will give us a little bit more time. It might be a slightly easier meeting if we came to July rather than June. Yeah. So those are some questions. The point about how universities engage. So Ian Lewis from the university, as Nigel said, is very, very active and engaged. He's been doing all this amazing work with all the kind of data about real-time bus information, which is a real breakthrough thing. So people, you can stand at a bus stop and it sort of tries to tell you it's counting down to when the bus arrives, but those of us who catch buses know that sometimes it can scan 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 north, and then the bus still isn't there. So this will actually give you much more accurate, I wouldn't say perfect, but much more accurate data, and also predict when it's likely to get to its final destination, which I think is really useful for travellers. So university is heavily engaged actively, and Professor Ian Leslie as well, also from the Computer Lab is actively engaged, and some other colleagues as well. A number of businesses from around the place actively engaged. So I think it is kind of that very interesting partnership. It is quite innovative. It's not a classic kind of thing, so maybe different from transport housing, where you've got existing dedicated teams within councils who do it within that kind it's more risky in some ways, and some of the stuff we're trying to do isn't proven. So with innovation, there's always a risk you don't get everything you want. But with something like this, I think you might get stuff you don't know you're going to get, and you might get things that you didn't really want to. So there's kind of a belief in Cambridge. Cambridge has always been brave to try things, I think, over kind of 800 years or more. So I hope we'll continue to kind of be brave and try things and maintain Cambridge as a leading place. So that's my intention.
So, and when I say we, it's because it is a collaborative endeavour, and we do work very closely with business, and we work very closely with the universities, both Anglia Ruskin and Cambridge. We have been talking to a city, Milton Keynes, who are leading Smart City, and we've been talking to the Open University, who have developed a data hub there with a number of commercial partners, about whether or not that data hub would be suitable for Cambridge. We're looking, obviously, because it is such a cutting-edge thing, we want to make sure that we get the best thing to allow us to build a smart city. And so we have been looking around at this with various options. So that's kind of, so we need to confirm the investment before we decide how best to procure something which isn't commercial yet.
Well, in terms of the recommendations, my proposal is that we just alter the Assembly's second recommendation slightly. The request is so that we request a progress report for July 2016 to include, we request a business plan for the project in July 2016, including outcomes. So, subject to that, are we in agreement? Okay. Well, thank you for all the work that's been done on that. I think we would also be able to be looking to see if there are opportunities for other funding. I'm aware that there are both universities in the city who've got active bids at the moment, so there are ways that we can link and also direct some of what is important, I think, is that we try and aim to get the expertise from both the private companies and the universities and target it at transport, because I think we have such a significant challenge that it's a good way to develop the broader technology. So thank you. Right, we move on to the two final reports. We've got a workstream update. Tanya, we've also got the forward plan where we're proposing to slightly modify the dates for the board meetings, but obviously give the public very good warning in advance so that we bring them slightly closer to the dates that are already published for the Assembly. So any issues on the work stream, the work plan?
A lot of the projects and the work streams have been covered at today's meeting anyway. It might just be worth flagging that there's a skills subgroup on Monday, which is an assembly body, and he's coming to the skills work stream. The housing development agency managing director has now been appointed, and the pre-consultations closed since the last board meeting. That's the Milton Road, Eastern Road, and Hot City Cycling presentations, and those all got complete responses between 900 and 1,500 people organization.
Okay. Do we receive the forward? Okay. And then finally we've got the forward plan, which gives us an indication of what's going forward in June and July. So we've got the discussion about citywide interventions at the same time as the proposed reports following the consultations on Eastern Road and Milton Road, cross-city cycling with obviously some junction and other design issues, and then review reports on skills, housing and money. Okay? So then we've timetabled the feedback report on the smart cities and technology for July. And then in September we've got the West issues, both the Western Orbital, because there's a linkage there, and the Okay. Well, thank you, Councillor Pitt, for the input from the Assembly. I attribute to those members of the public that have stayed the course. And look forward to seeing you or most of you at the next meeting, which will be in June.
Yeah, I'm very sorry to push the point, but on this September meeting date, I think that's where we'd like the elder junction and the separate reports as well, so we consider that.
I'm very happy to keep tabs on that, including if you could just take the lead on that issue, follow through. Thank you to everybody for your contributions. Thank you to our